take so long? Okay. I think I'm live. Yep, I've got it. Okay. So I'm just going to get this all rearranged here so I can see it. I've got my article over here that I'm going to read, and I want to be able to see the live chat. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to wait for some ladies to join. Sorry, I'm not using the good microphone again, so the audio might not quite be as clear as weeks past. We've been doing a lot of recording in our little makeshift studio that we put up, and it's just a pain moving the microphones back and forth. So that's why I've been back to the setup for the time being while we do this. So I hope you all are enjoying. Hey, Sarah. Hope you all are enjoying the weather today. It is 80. Okay, what is it right now? 84 right now. Feels like 87 tomorrow. It's supposed to be 91. And then I think the day after that, 93. We were just running the heat last week. That's Illinois weather for you. Hey, Ashley. So I'm glad you all could join today. If you're not in the Facebook group, all those that are in the Facebook group, they kind of get a preview of what I'm going to be doing because I try to get the thumbnail made and out by Monday, usually by Friday, but I didn't until today. And so we are talking about being a traditional wife in a modern society. And I know I do like how crisp the sound is as well. It sounds a lot more podcasty, but I'll have to maybe just invest in buying one that I can bring for myself, even though they're kind of expensive. They're it's like a Scarlett microphone or something. So, but anyways, so it was funny because I don't know why the term, a lot of times if you look up trending things, it'll be under hashtag trad wife is a shortened name for it. And this often invokes feelings of rage among those in the world. They do not like to be, they do not like it when women are traditional wives. They don't like it when women are proud that they're a traditional wife. And I think it's just an attack on the home personally, but it really invokes feelings of rage in feminists and even not even quite feminists, just those influenced by the world's philosophy. And I think the reason that I kind of thought about doing this is we just had Mother's Day yesterday, and it's a celebration of moms all across the world. And my husband preached a message called The Modern Woman. So this just kind of made me think along those lines and how most of us, I know most of the ones watching my channel, unless you're a hater, you are interested in being a traditional wife. You want to fulfill the biblical role of being a good wife and a good mom. And that's why you watch. So I thought this would just be a good genre to talk about. This is the whole theme. This is the underlying foundation of my channel. I do wish that more IFB women had channels like this because I think it needs to be talked about more. Hopefully in the future, someone else will jump on board and start making videos as well. We need a plethora of advice. We need a lot of advice from women that have been through it, women that are striving to be good Christian moms and good Christian wives. So this subject right here is basically the premise of my entire channel. That and the fact that there aren't many women, IFB women especially, hey Amber, teaching on this subject. And I think we need more of it because women today are bombarded by the world's philosophy from every side. Hollywood demeans the tasks that stay-at-home moms face every day. And they make women who stay at home and raise their kids feel like they are second-class citizens. But the Bible is timeless and it lays out principles specifically for women. Hi, Beth. Nice to have you with. Hopefully the internet will keep up. So I wanted to kind of go over some of these things. I have many friends on Facebook, many even family members who, if they are staying home with the kids, they really struggle with feelings of self-worth. I think because the country has drilled it, the liberal media and the world and its philosophies it's been drilled into their head that in order to be, a member of society that's benefiting society, that they need to work. But we have things all opposite in our world today. We need more moms staying home and raising good children because families are falling apart, marriages are falling apart, kids are growing up without any direction at all, and just basically going the way of the world, even Christian kids. So this is really important to me. Hey, Amanda. Obviously, we'll go over the verses that, we all know. Titus 2, verse 2, but speak thou the things which become sound doctrine, that the aged men be sober, grave, temperate, sound in faith, in charity, and patience. The aged women likewise, that they be in behavior as becometh holiness, not false accusers, not given to much wine, teachers of good things. So teachers, they're supposed to teach. That they may teach the young women to be sober, to love their husbands, to love their children, to be discreet, chaste, keepers at home, good, obedient to their own husbands, that the word of God be not blasphemed. When I think of traditional wife, I think of this woman that it's describing here in Titus. I think of the biblical. That's how far back I go. Now, when you say that you're a hashtag trad wife, that is referring to like a 1950s era. But I go back even further than 1950s, because even in the 50s and then the 60s, when the sexual revolution began, there was a lot of skewed thinking when it came to homes and families and children and preventing children and all these other things. So I'm going to kind of go over that in a little bit. But then we have Proverbs 31, which outlines a blueprint for every Christian woman to follow. Obviously, Titus kind of tells us the foundation of what the aged women are supposed to be teaching to the younger women. But then we've got Proverbs 31, which is something that we all aspire to be. So, and I don't think that the Proverbs 31 woman, I don't think anyone is ever the whole package. I think it's something, though, that we can work towards. None of us have arrived. We all have areas that we can work on. And I think the way the Proverbs 31 woman is, just with all the work that she does do, she's very industrious and not idle and always busy. And she puts me to shame quite a bit. I think she puts a lot of us to shame just with all the frivolous time that we spend. Amen. I agree, Amanda. Amanda says she had that mentality. So she went to school to get her dream career. And though she wanted children, she thought her job would be more important to chase first. She was miserable and she'll never go back. And your boys will thank you for it. So feeling curious today, I looked up the term traditional wife. And the term has often been shortened to trad wife, and it's super controversial. Just go Google it. I'm going to read an article that I found about it. So let me go over here. And this was very enlightening, this article. And this is coming from, I don't know who writes this. Let me see if I can see who writes this. Amy Hunt. So it is a woman, but she is an experienced digital journalist specializing in homes, interiors, and hobbies. She began her career working as the features assistant at Women in Home magazine before moving over to the digital side of the brand. So that's basically her bio at the end of this. So you should see this. It's all 1950s black and white pictures of, a woman loading a dishwasher. Oh, that's a cute little dishwasher. You'll have to look it up. But it says, what is a trad wife and why is the idea proving so controversial? You may have heard of the terms housewife, stay-at-home mom, or the like, but why are trad wives getting everyone talking? So let's read some of this. So recently, a new archetype has emerged into the mainstream, the trad wife. If you're not familiar with the term, let us fill you in. A trad wife, short for traditional wife, is a 21st century woman who has decided to embrace super traditional, conventional gender roles by submitting, in italics, to their husband and not working, staying at home to do the typical household chores and care for the children. The topic has hit the spotlight recently after one woman, Alina Pettit, appeared on This Morning, explaining that she classes herself as a trad wife, in her own words, submitting to and spoiling her husband like it's 1959, and making a return to traditional English manners, lifestyle, and values. This must be an English thing because they said mom at the beginning. She revealed to Holly Willowby and Philip Schofield that after meeting her now husband through work, she opted to leave work, even allowing her husband to write her resignation letter, the horse, after he said that she needed to get out of the workplace. Oh my goodness. Now she said she is a full-time housewife, something she said she's always wanted to be deep down, and receives an allowance from her husband. She explained, growing up, I was asked several times by teachers what I wanted to be, and I would always say a housewife. I'd get laughed at all the time. I had a career in London, but my self-esteem was rock bottom and I wasn't living my true calling. Imagine that. I was a marketing manager in the beauty industry, but I flourished at home. I finally felt in my place where I want to be. However, Alina and Holly appeared to clash when it came to the topic of finances. Alina explained that her husband is in control of the finances and makes almost all the decisions about what the couple buy. She said, because he's the breadwinner, it's his department to look after the family. He oversees major finances. If I want to spend money and change the sofa, he says no, as he's aware of what's going in and out. He gives me an allowance. I get the money to look after my department, the consumables of the house. If I'm frugal with it, whatever is left is mine. But Holly argued that Alina's husband controlling the finances meant that the power balance was slightly off. She asked, why do you have to ask him? You can budget. So where did the term tradwife come from? It appears to have been brought into recent conversation following the report from BBC Talkback on the idea. However, it appears to be a hugely controversial term, considering it actually has origins in far-right circles, predominantly in the US. Not surprising. Many have pointed out that the term tradwife has been originally used among alt-right white supremacist groups. I heard that too. I don't know about that. Used to encourage women to submit to their men and simply bear plenty of children for them. But talk of tradwives on social media more recently suggests a softer view on the idea. A softer view on the idea is becoming popular among some people, with many women engaging with the hashtag tradwife on social media when describing their household activities such as baking and cleaning. Here's another picture of a woman taking a turkey out of the oven, and her husband has his arm around her and he's looking adoringly at the turkey. It's kind of a funny picture. I can't ever picture my husband doing that unless he's really hungry or something. Now, a large collective of women seem to be taking the term tradwife into their own hands, explaining that they are housewives by choice and embracing the chance to be submissive to their husbands and to take care mostly of all the typically feminine tasks in the home, such as ironing, making dinner, washing and cleaning, as well as taking on the role of primary caregiver to the children while their husband goes out to earn the money. There in a nutshell is what we're going to be talking about tonight. Alina, writing on her website, explained the role of a tradwife, saying that is a choice she is happy to make. She wrote, you may have noticed a new movement of ladies calling themselves traditional housewives, homemakers of our generation who are happy to submit to, keep house, and spoil their husbands like it's 1959. So I don't know if I'm going to, oh no, I'm almost at the end. So what is the general reaction to tradwives been? As you might expect, the reaction to the concept has been mixed. Over on social media, many have left outraged over the language used of women serving their husbands and the idea of women finding their place only within the home, with plenty calling it anti-feminist and a means of dragging progress backwards. One woman wrote on Twitter, being a housewife is fine. I am one. And what's not fine is encouraging ideas such as submit to your husband and your husband should always come first. You do you, but let's not teach girls that that sort of thing is okay, because it isn't. Well, another agreed, writing, I'm sorry to say it, but the hashtag tradwife movement is an insult to the advancement of women and is not something we should be promoting as a society. There's a reason 1959 is in the past. However, others explained that they thought women's choices, whatever they may be, should be respected, and if they choose to be a tradwife, then fair play to them. A social media user said, surely if you have the choice and you choose this lifestyle, your decision should be respected. It seems a shame that women's choices are subject to criticism by others who chose a different path. Same applies to stay-at-home dads as their choice, hashtag tradwife. As another wrote about Lena, her life, her choice. She's not trying to tell others how to live theirs. She's not upsetting anyone, and she looks happy enough living as she is. And then it says, so what do you think of the concept of a tradwife? I also looked up the urban legend. Where is it? Okay, so I also looked up the Urban Dictionary, and that kind of had an interesting meaning. It said tradwife, short for traditional wife, used in alt-right circles to refer to women that embody traditionally feminine and wifely qualities. which are submissiveness, chastity, willingness to do household chores, etc. Okay, I'll take that. So yeah, yeah, it is a little cringy. Because it's funny because yes, I do embrace the term trad wife or traditional wife because the Bible doesn't change, even though society does. And I still believe a husband and wife each have their own roles. One is not more important than the other. They are both important. And I feel like a lot of women get so offended by this because they almost act like you're making yourself lesser than your husband. But here's the thing that as women that we have to realize, the Bible talks about how we are the weaker vessel. Now, when it says weaker vessel, that's not a put down. Women are made differently than men. It's science, right? Men are different. They have unique chromosomes and different things that goes on. Women are different. We are weaker as far as physically, probably emotionally. Men usually are in charge of their emotions more. If there is a man who isn't, he kind of gets made fun of, kind of gets picked on a little bit, kind of tell, man up, because men are supposed to be different in that area than women. Men aren't supposed to be all up and down and depressed and in the dumps and changing their mind this day and changing their mind this day. They're supposed to be a little bit more in control of that than women. So just because we are the weaker vessel does not mean that we are lesser than men. Now this, okay, so one is not more important than the other. They're both important, but it's also important that the wife realizes that her role is so needed, especially to raise good children and have a good home life. Now, this is not geared towards those that have no choice and have to work outside the home. I know I do have a few listeners like that. You have no choice. Your husband's put you in that situation. And maybe you're the primary, breadwinner. Now you're going to have to do a little bit more work if your husband's not on board as far as the way you train your kids. You might need to put in a little more work and effort than what's already there. But this one is not really geared towards those listeners. But I will say that even when it comes to being a stay-at-home wife, it does, and it did for us, involve choices and priorities. My husband and I have had to give up some pleasures for me to be a stay-at-home mom and raise the kids. As they've gotten older, I've branched out, and I also run a side business now from home, but we've had our share of sacrifices so I could stay home with the kids. Okay, so we did, at the beginning of our marriage, it was just determined I would be the primary caregiver in the home. I would be the one primarily raising the children. I would be staying home with them. We were not going to ever send them to government daycares, government schools. We would do the training. If it wasn't in a Christian school, it would be under us. And even when they were in a Christian school, they were still under my husband's supervision every day because he was the principal. So we have a unique situation because we're in the ministry. So how am I a traditional wife? And why do I say that I'm a traditional wife? Well, number one, I believe and I agree in biblical submission. Oh, the word submission, no. I believe that the husband is the leader, because all throughout the Bible, that is what is said. The husband is the leader. So I agree in biblical submission. I believe that the wife is over the home when her husband's gone. That's kind of like her little domain. And she does have, the say after dad does, but I do believe that there needs to be someone being the spiritual leader of the home and someone physically being the leader of the home as far as, making the big decisions when it comes to maybe financial stuff. And there's no reason with any of these things that the woman can't be involved. I've always been involved in our finances to some degree. Since I started my side business, that's kind of my own little egg over there. And then as far as the main budget, I don't do much with that anymore. So he figures out the bills. And then I do have a weekly, I wouldn't call it an allowance. I feel like some women think the term allowance is very degrading. Like you give kids allowance and you're going to give me an allowance. So I don't know if that's why people get so upset about that term. I just call it my budgeted amount. So I have a certain amount that I know is in the budget for groceries every week. And I try not to spend more than that when it comes to our own joint account. And I agree in different roles for the husband and the wife. I agree that and believe that the husband is the leader of the home in all areas, spiritual leader, making the big decisions. He gets the final say when it comes to, maybe you have a disagreement when it comes to the kids. You know, a lot of times as wives, we need to just learn to trust our husband's judgment and follow his leading and follow his call when it comes to, I remember I was very nervous when my boys were just 12 and 13. He let them get jobs detasseling here in Illinois, you know, the Midwest. We have cornfields everywhere, and they were around some pretty rough characters. But he told me they're going to need to learn to take stands, even when it's not a church setting or they're not with their church friends. So, you know, I, as a mother, tried to prep them. You know, if you're on foul language, walk away. You know, if any of the boys are trying to show you something on their phone, you don't need to look. You know, so I kind of prepped them for that. And it turned out to be a very good decision. They learned to be hard workers. Now they are, you know, 20 and 19 and working in a factory, and some of the top pullers there every day. So, you know, they learned to work hard. They learned to hold their own. They learned to take stands in a couple of the jobs that they had too. So it was good. I had to trust him, because as a mama, you don't want to see your 12 or 13-year-old, you know, coming home. Oh, they were so tired. Jason, one time, because it's so wet when you're working with the corn, he was wearing a water bottle or something, and it started chafing and it developed staph. And so he got this huge staph infection. And obviously, of course, this happened when I was at volleyball camp that year. And so Tommy sent me pictures of Jason's back where it was spreading, and he's like, something's going on. So I told my husband, I said, you need to get an appointment for him. But you know what? I had to call the doctor. I had to set up the appointment, you know, between volleyball games that I'm coaching, I'm calling the doctor, and he took him in, and sure enough, it was staph infection. So he had to be on an antibiotic. But stuff like that is going to happen. So, you know, I just had to trust his discernment when it came to that. Okay, so I believe in large families. Now, traditionally, a long time ago, I feel like in the when the sexual revolution started in the 60s, suddenly the birth control pill became huge. I don't believe in birth control pills. I don't believe in hormonal contraceptives, because they have the potential to abort a fertilized baby. So I go way back with traditional. Even with that, I don't believe in hormonal contraceptives. But I do feel like back in the 1900s, you know, they didn't really have a lot of the contraceptives or things, abortions, Planned Parenthood, any of that. So they had large families. So I believe in having large families. I believe it being fruitful, multiplying, you know, allowing God to bless you when it comes to that area. So I am very traditional with that. I've always wanted, from the time I was little, lots of kids. I came from a family of 5. My husband came from a family of 5. I believe children are a blessing. So I wanted lots of kids. Like I said, birth control. Everyone knows my position on that. I do believe there are some common sense things that you can do if you need a break, if your body has issues or problems and you really need to give it a break. There is natural family planning that you can do, but I never believe in using something that can cause an abortion. So that's my stance on that. And then when it came to families, I believe that it's my job to teach my kids and not the government's job. I'm the best teacher for my mom. I was looking at the comments. I'm the best teacher for my kids. I'm their mom. I saw Ashley's comment. She said I was a nanny for 20 years. The moms are so much more stressed working full time. That is true. It is. Kids want their moms. I can promise any sacrifice for a mom being home is worth it. I saw so many kids first. That is true. As a nanny, you would see that for sure. Let me make sure I'm not missing any. Okay. So I believe that this is going to be shocking. Not really. I believe that women should do the majority of the housework. I do. Sorry. My husband has been outside most of today from about 1 o'clock on. He has been doing yard work, but he's subduing the land. He does all the yard work and he is hot and sweaty and gross. He was just finishing when I left to come here. So that's his position out there doing all that, but mine is in the home. I'm not going to, after he comes in all hot and sweaty, takes a bath, gets all, cleaned up, I'm not going to expect him to do dishes or vacuum or mop or, anything. He never has. I can probably count on my hand the times he has done dishes. Now, if you have a husband that wants to help you, that is totally up to him. I'm just saying, as wives, I don't believe it's our job to nag our husbands to do any of that. If your husband is the main breadwinner, and this is just my opinion, my belief, if your husband is the main breadwinner, then he is out working hard, 8 to 10 hours a day, and he needs a chance to just come home, put his feet up, and relax. So yeah, maybe that's old fashioned, that's traditional, but that's what I believe. A kind of smart husband will see if his wife is overwhelmed and help out. But most men work hard all day so you can stay home. So acknowledge that. I think men would get very stressed out if they worked hard, grueling job for 8 to 10 hours and then came home to more and more and more demands. It's just, as moms, we obviously have a lot on our plate, but there are times when we can relax. That's why I believe in sleep training, nap time, because moms need to give themselves a break. So we need to work it out in our schedule and our priorities to do the hard things like sleep training, getting them on a sleep schedule so that we can have some rest too. So I believe that men are the primary breadwinners. That's just my belief. It's with my husband and I, there would never be a situation, I think, where I would ever even make more than him. I understand, some when it comes to the medical profession, maybe the woman works more or she makes more than the husband, and maybe he wants her to work because her job brings in more than his. That's something that every family is going to have to decide. But for us, that would never even be an option. And I believe that women are the primary caregivers. There's just something more about moms. We are more nurturing by nature. We are more compassionate. We are more sympathetic. Dads, walk it off. Even with the girls, are you hurt? Yes, I'm hurt. Are you bleeding? Are you dying? No, you're fine. Walk it off. That just seems to be kind of how guys are. So women are just definitely more nurturing. We tend to have more of an instinct when it comes to where's the kids? What are they getting into? Are they hurt? Why is it so quiet? God has given us that. So I do firmly believe that we make better caregivers. I know I do than my husband. So yeah. Okay. So now let's get into some of these controversial things. I don't think anything I've said so far is controversial. This stuff is not controversial to me. I don't know. I'm a Bible believer. So I just believe what the Bible says about women and, our roles, and I just go with it. So, but I believe that wives are to be chaste. Obviously, men need to keep themselves pure too. Men need to behave in marriage. Men don't need to be, sleeping around and cheating. Yes, but the show is for women. So I believe for women that we are to be chaste. So before marriage, train your daughters that this is what I do with mine. No amount of physical affection before marriage is okay. And that means kissing, holding hands, because one thing will lead to another, will lead to another, will lead to another. My dream, excuse me, swallowed weird. My dream is that all of my children will walk the aisle. All of my children will walk the aisle pure. And in order to get to that, you need to teach your daughter to be pure. You need to teach her to be chaste. You need to teach her that it's a priceless gift that she will someday give to her husband. And once it's gone, you cannot get it back. So, but also during marriage, and this includes keeping your mind and heart pure, which would be not looking at porn, romance novels, etc. I think that romance novels are probably one of the biggest things that women get hooked to that cause discontentment. Because I've never really read romance novels. I guess the only type of romance novels that I've read are by Christian authors. Francine Rivers has a couple. but I've never read any of the like Walmart books that have stuff in them. But I've heard of women that have struggled in this area because it paints a false world where no guy acts like that. And so I think that definitely, I mean, along with social media, but also there's been an uptick, which my husband has been doing a series for men on Tuesdays. And I think tomorrow he's having a guest on, and they're talking about just the devastation of pornography. And I would encourage any of you, maybe just, if your husband's struggling, if he's not, directing him to those videos to kind of just even instill in his mind that he won't do that, because it is such a devastating thing that so many men are addicted to. But I have had an uptick of women reaching out saying that their husband wants them to watch it with him. And I kind of think it's because, this is my own personal opinion, I'm just throwing it out there. I think it's because he feels guilty. And it's kind of like when Eve gave her husband the apple, here, eat this with me. She knew she had sinned. She knew she was at fault. And so she wanted to get her husband to sin along with her. And I think that's kind of what it is with the men wanting their wives to watch it with them. They use it in the excuse of, I want to spice up our marriage. I want to spice up our physical life. But the end of that junk is just devastation. And it actually rewires your brain and the way you think. And then some men get to where they can't even have a physical relationship with their wife without it. So stay away from that at all costs. I really think that this is one of the most damaging things in marriage, as far as the physical relationship, especially. But you need to keep your mind and your heart pure, even after you're married. Obviously you're going to have a physical relationship with your husband, and you want to keep that pure, and the Bible does say the marriage bed is undefiled. But back then, they didn't have the sin of, watching these horrible, disgusting things that people are doing on these videos or whatever they are. So, just keep that in mind. I do think it's very devastating, and every married couple needs to stay as far away from that as they can. So, and then we are to teach our children to be chaste, like I mentioned earlier. Just stress the importance to your girls about how important it is to, keep your body under wraps and, dress modestly, sit like a lady, act like a lady, the way that we treat the opposite sex, like when you're married, don't even allow your thoughts to ever think of another man the same way that you do about your husband. Just don't even let your mind go there. Don't even daydream. Don't every man, treat him like a brother, basically. And then remember the sanctity of marriage. It's one man, one woman for life. So if you keep all of these other things out of your relationship and you just grow together, it's going to be so much better in the long run. All right. Another reason that I am traditional, I believe that women should have class. I really am a very big, I push this very much. Women should be classy. Women should look like women and men should look like men. Women should have feminine speech, talk like a lady. This would including foul language. Those of you that know me and my husband, we've often been slammed as being holier than thou because we're really careful about the words that we use. And I don't understand when becoming holy was a bad thing. Because I thought every Christian was trying to be holy and trying to become more holy. So, and I'm not the type that goes around, well, I do this, so you should do this. But for me and my girls and my house, this is what I teach them. And I teach them the ladies should have class, and classy ladies don't use foul language. Classy ladies watch their mouths. Classy ladies don't have potty mouths. And there used to be a time when men would not even cuss or swear in front of a lady. And I've actually been, I know you guys know I'm bold, but I've actually been places where people have been using foul language, and I've had my kids and I've told them, you're saying these things in front of a lady and her kids. And so I remind them, and most of the time some of them have gotten a little miffed about it, but then others are like, oh, I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to, they'll apologize, because that used to be the norm. Men just didn't cuss in front of women and kids. So I think we should all strive to be more holy and all strive to have better speech. So I don't know why that's a bad thing, that you would not want to have foul language. So, but be discreet. And that, when I think of discreet, I think of someone who is not always airing out problems, fighting, especially publicly. And now this applies so much more today because we have so many social media platforms, and just look at me. Well, then people get caught up in it and they air out, fights with their husband, fights between family members. It seems like every time they post, they're complaining, something's wrong. So that's when it comes to discreet. I'm not saying to be fake, but I am saying social media is just kind of a little snapshot into our lives. And I like having it for the memories that pop up. So I like to post about the good things that are going on in my life. Or if I have a question, Facebook is a good place to ask questions if you're wondering about something. But not for airing things out. So be discreet, control your tongue. Why is that considered traditional? Because back in Paul's day, he was warning about the tongue. In Proverbs, there's so many verses about the tongue. So I believe in that. And then teach your daughters to do the same, especially. And I'm focusing on daughters, obviously your sons too. I don't want my sons using foul language either. But more so, I do believe that girls need to be set apart and different from the world. And there should be something endearing about feminine traits. And we are supposed to be different. We're not supposed to be rough. We're not supposed to be, brass and crude. We're supposed to be different. We're supposed to be ladylike. We're supposed to be feminine. That's why I like all things tea parties. And I am a girly girl. I've often been criticized, even from the beginning of starting this show. I've had angry women messaging me and mad that I wear makeup, like it's any of their business. But I'm into that. I'm into pretty earrings and doing my hair, and it takes me all of 30 minutes every day to do it. It does not take very long. But that's just part of me trying to be feminine in a world where women wear leggings as pants, and women are dressed down anytime they go to Walmart. They're dressed in sweatpants, or it's yoga pants or leggings now most of the time, with a baseball cap, and their hair in a messy bun, which messy buns are cute every once in a while. I'm just talking about, it looks like they haven't even brushed it. They've just kind of thrown it up. So, I think it's important for us to stand out. I had the nicest girl say something to me. I love tulle skirts. It's like and I wore one yesterday for Mother's Day with just I don't know, it was like a rose colored thing over it. And she saw me in Culver's, and she was a worker there. So she's probably being nice just because she was a worker. But she was like, oh, I love your outfit. She's like, I just want to tell you, you are so pretty. And I was like, oh, well, thank you for saying that. But, people notice when you look different. I had another little girl. It was in a restaurant too. And I was standing there, and she was tugging her mom's or her dad. I can't remember who it was. And she was like, look. And they were like, what? And she's like, there is a lady. And she was pointing to me and saying, there is a lady. And I think it's, we put that across by the way we dress and the way we act. So yeah, Amber, same thing. And Texas is really bad. I noticed. Texas, probably because it's so hot, I guess they think, but you know what? It's really not that hot wearing a skirt. So, and then I've had people in wintertime, how can you wear a skirt? Because I wear leggings under my skirt. So you can layer, and you can layer cute ways too, stylish ways. So number 6, I believe that children are God's biggest gifts and should be treated as such. So I'm traditional when it comes to that. And one of the things that I do with my kids, I'm traditional in the sense that I'm in church anytime the doors are open. Now, it used to be way back in the day, like 1920s, 1930s. I think they probably only had one service. And a lot of times IFB gets criticized because we have Sunday morning, we have Sunday school, Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. And, well, they didn't do it that way back then. You're only doing it this way because it's traditional and man-made rules. My Bible says, not to forsake the assembling of yourselves together, and so much the more as you see the day approaching. So as the world gets worse and worse, we're going to need more instruction. We're going to need each other more in the house of God. So church is super important for my kids. I'm very traditional when it comes to that. And of course, this is something I've talked about often. I don't really need to spend much time on this. Their church is our biggest priority after school. School's a huge priority too. They have to do it every day. We finish out the school year every year, but church is right after that. Unless they have a fever or they're puking, we go. If they have a cold, we go. If they have the sniffles, we go. It's very, very important to us. And another thing that I've seen is that a lot of people who don't place much importance on church and they stay home for every sniffle or every cold, they'll go out to Walmart. They'll go to the library. They'll go to, a park. They'll do all these other things, but they won't go to church. So I've never really understood that. With my boys, I've always told them, if you would go to work feeling this way, then you can go to church. If they're just tired or they have a headache or something, obviously if they're running a fever, they don't need to be around everyone infecting them. And we've just kind of always followed that rule. So when they do stay home, if they do, I know it's really bad. I know they have a fever or, if they're puking, obviously we don't want puking people here. But protect them, protect your children. You are the protector as the mom. And I believe in chivalry. I believe in men being the protectors of the home. I believe in men looking out for their wives and caring for them. I'm old fashioned that way. I believe in brothers looking out for their sisters and siblings looking out for each other. And then don't throw them to the wolves of the world. There's so many wolves out there. Even in churches, you have to be careful. Don't just let your kid go over to anyone's house. You need to, make sure that you don't know what goes on in that home. I've been pretty shocked being in the ministry. I've become even more leery of just letting my kids go anywhere, because there have been homes where I thought it was a great, great place. Come to find out there was, stuff going on that I had no clue, and they had everyone fooled. They seemed like the perfect family in church, but at home it was a war zone. So I've become even more careful about that. But controversial thing number 7, I believe we should put our husband first in the things of the home. First, not first. What about us? Serve him food. Make sure he has enough. So one thing I've always done, and probably would receive criticism if anyone was ever over and they saw me doing it, but I don't care. I always serve him first. The kids know that dad gets his plate first. So I serve him up a big old plate of whatever we have, make sure he has enough. And then the kids get theirs, and I usually get my last, is usually how it goes. Just because I want to make sure everyone has enough, he has enough. He is working really hard to put the food on the table, so he gets to be served first. Don't nag him at home. Men should have a peaceful haven in their home, put their feet up. They've been working hard. Home should be like their safe place. We're always talking about safe places, right? It should be their safe place. So don't nag them at home. Treat them with respect. And this comes with, especially in front of the kids. The kids pick up most of what or how they act based off of your actions. And if you are going to want your kids to respect your husband when it comes to him disagreeing with them and putting his foot down about something, then you need to respect him as well. Don't badmouth him to others. This is a big one for me. I don't like it when women badmouth their husbands, Because let's say you have a fight, it's a legitimate fight. He was a jerk, he was wrong, whatever. Well, your friend, or your mom, or your sister is not going to be able to forget that even after you have, which you all have heard me say that many, many times. And they're going to, keep remembering that and not let it go. They're going to hold a grudge. I remember my best friend when we were growing up, probably 14 or 15, she had a crush on a boy. And this boy did something hurtful to her. And she told me about it. And I never liked him after that. And even after she got over it and they made amends, I never got over it. I never liked him because of the things he did to my friend. And that's how it's going to be, when it comes to your husband. So, and then give him praise, especially if he likes that. Find his love language. Obviously, we're talking about specifically how you interact with your husband. He can tell the men how they need to interact with their wives. He could do that on his Tuesday show. But I'm only talking to the wives tonight. Obviously, I believe that men need not to be punks and men need to love their wives, because there's a lot of commandments in there for men to love their wives too. So they need to love their wives, treat her as the weaker vessel, love her, cherish her, all that stuff. But we're not talking to the men. And then dress the way he likes. That's so controversial. When you were dating, did you like it when he said, wow, you really look nice? So take note of what he likes you in and dress that way. Mm-hmm. I remember when we were dating, one of my friends gave me a dress for, I don't know, my birthday or something. And it kind of looked like a Chinese dress. I don't know how to explain it. Kind of like, the kimonos. It wasn't really like that, but it had like the same kind of pattern. And I remember I wore it one time on a Sunday morning and we were dating and he was just like, "Did you get a new dress?" And I was like, "Mm-hmm. Do you like it?" And he was like, "Well, it's interesting." And we weren't married at the time. He was trying to be nice, but he did not like that dress. And guess what? I never wore that dress again because, you want to please your husband. You want to be attractive for him. So I made a mental note. Doesn't like Chinese looking dresses or kimonos or whatever, it looks like. So I try to dress the way that he likes. I do my hair and my makeup the way he likes. So I figure out, I ask him, I'll show him on Pinterest. Do you like this hairstyle? You like this hairstyle? And I've kind of figured out, like when we first got married, I just thought he liked like super long hair. I'm going to grow my hair out super long. Come to find out, he is okay with however I do my hair, but he prefers probably about this length. He doesn't like it really short, but he doesn't like it super long either. So this is the way I have my hair now, this length. This is kind of about the way he prefers it. So I do it that way. I'm not dyeing my hair because even with all my whites that I'm getting, look at those whites. And then you got to see the whites in there. I'm getting white. There's a white one sticking out. Even with all my whites that I'm getting, he prefers that I gray naturally. He said, age gracefully. That's one of his sayings, age gracefully. So I'm just going to leave it and I'm going to age gracefully. And then keep the home the way he likes it. We used to have this, this old, it looked like, have you ever seen, it's like an old window frame and it was like a decoration. So it's like an old window frame, an old wooden window frame, and he hated it. And so he just kept making comments. So when we moved to this house, I didn't even put it up. I'm like, whatever. And then there's also like this cross stitch thing that he used to, every time he'd walk by it, he'd knock it down. And he just made so many comments. So one day I'm like, this is stupid. Why do I keep this up? So I just took it down. I'm like, this isn't even worth it. So those things aren't hanging up. And he doesn't normally complain. He's not picky about the way I decorate. He knows that's my haven and whatever. But I just remember those two things, like in our marriage, he hated those things. So I got rid of them. It's not worth it. Why would I want it up if he's just going to hate it? I want him to feel like our home is nice and he likes our home. So, and then don't go against what he wants, especially if the kids know he likes it a certain way. So if you want your kids to respect him, you need to respect and listen to him. It goes both ways. They're following your example. So, definitely listen to what he wants. I don't know why this is like such a controversial thing, because I would think And when wives start treating their husbands like this, the love for you kind of tends to well up inside of him. And, you both treat yourself, you both treat each other better, then it's, goes around, comes around. So, and then think before you speak. And this is a big one when it comes to men. We kind of went over this a week or two ago, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that. But number 8, I am against abortion and for the sanctity of children. So traditional, so shocking. I am ecstatic that Roe versus Wade might finally get overturned. I never thought in a million years in my lifetime I would see that get overturned. I thought it was here forever. So the fact that it's a possibility is very exciting to me. I do believe that maybe God will spare us a little bit longer. Now, do I think abortion is going to go away? Absolutely not, because they're going to leave it up to states. So that's the way it's looking. Illinois, unfortunately, we probably will be cursed because there's no way Illinois will get rid of it, meaning that Chicago makes all the decisions for Illinois, which is just horrible. Most of Illinois, unknown to most people, most of Illinois is a red state. We are very conservative in most of our areas. We're Midwesterners, we're farmland people, we're hardworking farm people. And the only thing that messes that up is Chicago. So if we could just wall off Chicago and make it its own separate state, I would love that. And then leave the rest of us alone to make our own decisions. So I do think that it will still go on. Women just might have to travel further to get an abortion. It will make it harder, which will thus result in hopefully more babies' lives being saved. So that's a whole nother subject for another day. I might talk about that or touch on that in one of the coming up shows. So, but I am against abortion and I am for the sanctity of children. People always say, what about rape victims? Well, that in and of itself is about less than 0.5%, I believe. So we're talking about a tiny, tiny number of people. Now, when it comes to that, I firmly believe that if we had harsher laws against rapists, there would be far less rapes. So that is something that we should address when it comes to things like that. Yeah, it's not quite overturned yet. It was just a a draft that came out that was leaked saying that in the next few months it might be overturned, and then it would go to the states. So but when it comes to, I'm going to wrap this up, I'm almost done. When it comes to as far as voting, etc., what else would be included in that? You guys give me some ideas. But when it comes to things like that, just do what your husband wants. Mine wants me to vote, especially for local matters. And because during the pandemic, we found out how important local leadership is, because everything rises and falls local first, and then it branches out from there. So even though Pritzker was Mr. Nazi and doing his own thing in Springfield or wherever, our local leaders did not enforce it. So our local policemen were great. And even though our local sheriff is considered a Democrat, my husband's actually talked to him. He's basically said he just put Democrat because he had to you have to pick something, which is weird when you're running for sheriff. And that's what he picked, but he was great during the whole thing. They recognized the Constitution, and they recognized that they were not going to mess with churches that remained open. So I was very thankful for our local leaders. So he prefers that I vote. So I do. Honestly, I don't think that most of our votes really do much. Well, I think that votes are pretty much fixed anyways, but I don't really feel like our votes do much, except with the exception of maybe on the local level. It feels pretty fruitless to vote in Illinois for like president and all that, because first of all, there's no good candidates. Second of all, Chicago decides Illinois, what way Illinois swings. So I kind of feel like that's totally a moot point, but and this goes for anything that, if your husband wants you to do the budget, go ahead and do it. If he wants to do the budget, let him do it, it's just, you have to have faith, and you have to have trust your husband that he can even do it. So I think so many women just, they take the reins with so much. They just don't leave any, control up to their husband. And I think that's wrong. Now, I will say, I'm wrapping this up. I am not talking about all of this going on in abusive situations. I always have to put that disclaimer out there, because there will be the 1 in 100 or 1 in 1,000, whatever, who is in an abusive relationship. And when I'm talking about an abusive relationship, I'm talking about someone who is violent, gets easily upset with you, screaming at you, hitting you, throwing things at you, putting you in harm's way. That is an abusive situation. I think we can go a little bit too far with this. I feel like everyone claims emotional abuse. And when it comes to anyone that you're close to in life, you're going to have disagreements. Just because you have a disagreement with someone and they don't agree with you does not mean that they're being emotionally abusive. So I think we have to be really careful with that phrase. But I am talking about abusive situations. I always advocate for, if you are in this situation, please get help. Please reach out. This is why it's so important to be in church and be surrounded with people that you can reach out to. Your pastor's wife. Most pastors and pastors' wives are held to a higher standard when told something. So if they are ever told of something illegal going on, they have to report it. They're mandated reporters in a lot of situations. So this comes with anything as far as sexual abuse, physical abuse, anything that's illegal, they have to report it. So please get help. I'm sure that they would be able to shelter you, give you help until you're able to get away from that. I'm not talking about abusive situations with this. I'm talking about a normal man who's married to a normal woman and there is no abuse involved. So that is where I am traditional. Now, I am going to be, over the next week or two, trying to read through again Created to Be His Helpmeet by Debbie Pearl. This is a book that has taken America by storm, maybe even the entire world. I have had lots of women tell me that it has helped their marriage, but I've had, with my own eyes, I've seen the fruit of some of the women that tried following the advice in that book. I have tried to stay away from listening to reviews about the book, just because when I do the review, I wanted it to be my own words coming through. So I'm going to try. I do think obviously there are some grains of wisdom in the book, because she does use Bible verses. There's going to be truth in that. But I have a lot of red flags about the pearls in general. And I'll just say now, I'll address it more in the video. One of them being that he believes you can attain sinless perfection, which is a huge red flag to me. Because anyone that will say that doesn't even understand the Bible, doesn't even understand how human flesh works, doesn't understand, our blessed hope, which is that we're going to be changed into that which is like Christ. So they don't understand a lot of very basic fundamentals, which really is a huge warning sign to me. And I think the man is creepy. And I think that the reason she maybe has good advice is because she's lived under a difficult man for all these years. So I'll address all of that when I do that book. I actually went to a Baptist church once. We were there on a Sunday, and their Sunday school class, it was a ladies' Sunday school class. They were working through that book. And they thought it was a good book. So I don't know. I just had a lot of red flags, which I will address. And yeah, Sarah, yes, most pastors and pastors' wives are mandated reporters. Yes. In fact, there was a situation where my son was working at a job, and he came home and told us something about a minor, something that was going on with a minor he was working with, and this guy that was like grooming him, and inappropriate stuff going on. And since he had told my husband, my husband did go to the police with it, because he didn't even know, even though it wasn't in a church setting, since he knew about it, he thought it was better to be safe than sorry. And he reported it. So that was a whole nother situation that happened where my son was working. So lots of lessons, but I'm glad that my husband was able to kind of walk him through how to deal with that and, you know, what he needed to do. And it was uncomfortable, you know, but it all worked out for good. And, you know, so yeah, that's something to consider as well. If you're ever in a situation like that and you need your pastor can get in trouble by law if he does not report certain things, if he finds out, especially sexual abuse, especially if it's gone on in the church or with someone in the church, he needs to report that. So that's something that we live by. We take very seriously. In this church, my husband and I do. So we want to keep all of that stuff out of here. And if any wrong has been done, then we want to report it to the correct authorities. So anyways, I hope that was a help. That is why I'm traditional. If you guys have any ways that you're traditional, maybe I didn't follow it, go ahead and leave it down below in the comments. I had a request and I think I'm going to try to do it maybe next week. You guys want to see guests from the past on too, leave them down in the comments, and maybe I can get someone to be on here as a guest. But someone asked today if I could do a show about girls after they graduate and before they're married, kind of where do we go? What do we do? You know, how do we keep them busy? So I'll kind of be going over that. I wish my daughter would be on, but there's no way. She already told me, nope, Mom, not going on Gently Led Sisters with you. So that's, and she probably won't unless I beg her to, you know, a few years from now, if she ends up getting married and having kids and I want her to talk about it. Unless I beg her, she probably won't. But I am just now entering that phase. Obviously, I've been through it the last couple of years with my boys. The boys are different. Boys are different than girls. So we have a bigger job, I think, to protect our girls. Our boys kind of need to be hardy and they need to be rough and tumble and they need to get used to standing against storms. But our daughters are special. You know, they need to be protected. So I'll kind of be going over that. Yes, Dana, I need to have her on again. Yes. What do you want to hear Dana talk about? Go ahead and put it in the comments or in the live chat. And yes, I need to have Jane on too. I want to have her daughters on. I just haven't been able to get a hold of them. So I want to have Jennifer and Janelle on, which are her daughters, and just kind of talk about growing up in a first generation Christian home, things that they're doing with their kids now. Oh, I also want to have Mrs. Reeves. I had her on, her daughter. I need to reach out to her too. She's single. She's in her 20s and she's single. And I would like to kind of have her on to kind of talk about single years and, you know, different stuff like that. So yes, leave the comments. Thanks for joining, ladies. I hope you enjoyed this. Like, share. If you haven't subscribed, I'm getting kind of like a new set of people on here, so that's exciting. It's always exciting to have new people, so welcome if you are new. But I love all my ones that have watched since the very beginning. Ashley and you know, Sarah and Amanda and all of you, Beth, all of my Amber, all of my very, very faithful listeners. I love all of you. So yeah, that's a good idea, Ashley. I will pick her brain about it. I text her all the time. So I'll definitely text her and ask her to come on. But I hope you ladies have a lovely week and we will see you next week.